Do you want to feel more powerful in Valheim? Do you want the power of the gods? Well, how about actually some more playable classes? This is what this mod is going to do today. Hello ratbags, it's Jade, another little mod showcase. This one is called Valheim Legends, and it pretty much gives you some powers for your hero. Now this mod actually lets you choose a class. So there's 6 classes. There is the Ranger class, the Valkyrie, the Berserker, the Mage, the Druid and the Shaman. Each of these has 3 abilities, although some currently aren't working correctly. Obviously it is a mod, there is always some little issues sometimes. And there's even some skills that you can level up as well. 5 brand new skills like Conjuration and Evocation, etc. And these will determine how powerful your special abilities are. They use up a lot of stamina obviously, and that's what it's pretty much doing. So it is kind of meant to be replacing how you normally play. Like using just weapons and stuff, you're meant to really grow and get bigger and stronger using your abilities over time. Although you can still use your weapons, you can bind it to pretty much any key you want, and you can adjust how the cooldowns work too. Discipline, which is going to give you better physical attacks, abjuration, protection spells, alteration, which gives you enhancement attributes, conjuration, which gives you a creature, you can have a little pet wolf, and evocation, which is going to give you manipulating energy skills. All this stuff is customizable in the mod itself in the config file. Again, I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So you can increase how much of this experience you get or levels you get. You can increase the amount of damage it does and the cooldowns as well. So let's start with the Mage class. So one of the first ones is the Nova field, and it pretty much just does a small cone of ice damage or frost damage around you. You do have to be quite close to some of the enemies as well for it to actually be effective, but it does pretty much a lot of damage to boars and stuff. Now I've accidentally got it binded to my crouch key. You can rebind these powers to any key you want as well, so you can put it on your mouse buttons as well if you really want. Next one is a fire damage ball. Now you see there I've just literally set the troll alight, and that's what it does, a fireball. Now it's good, you can use it from distance. It will aim exactly where the reticule is rather than where the player is facing. So if you're running away from an enemy, you can go ahead and use it. But it does take a couple seconds delay, and you're pretty open to attacks when you use it. But you can see the troll is burning and taking fire damage for a little while longer. All of these skills use your stamina, so it's still the same thing as whether or not you're playing it in a combat way. You've got to have lots of big stamina pools. So it could be good. I feel like the base settings are pretty punishing. Like really, to get to level 100, you're going to have to use these a lot. So it is a challenge for sure, and it is meant to be like a class-based thing. So if you want something a bit different with Valheim, and you do want to try something a bit interesting, then yeah, you're going to have to use these abilities a lot rather than just relying on the good old weapons that you normally do. And sadly, the third ability, which is like meant to be the big main one that's got like a 4-minute or 5-minute cooldown, is a meteorite ability, but it just wasn't working with this mage guy. Depending on how much stamina you've got, it's meant to cool down a big ferocious amount of meteorites. So yeah, it just wasn't working at the early stages. Maybe it increases, like if you keep building it up, eventually it will start working. But yeah, it seems like it's obviously broke. Obviously some of these mods do conflict with other mods. You might get it working, or keep track of it obviously on the actual mod page to see if they've actually fixed it. But overall, it's an okay one. Obviously, it'd be nice to see the meteorite one actually work. And the fireball, you do risk setting yourself alight if you're too close to enemies as well. So yeah, it needs a bit more work. I ended up boosting how much experience you get for the skills. And you see I've got my evocation up to 20 by using it quite a bit. So next up is the Valkyrie, which does a huge amount of damage when you jump. You can see it's quite a big area of effect, and that is the main power there. It's got a little bit of a cooldown. And then the second ability is meant to be a stagger ability that stops enemies from kind of attacking you for a second. It's really short, again, needs a little bit more work. It'd be nice if it actually staggered enemies for a bit longer than it does, but it is meant to give you a brief second of respite, so hopefully you can get away. And then the third ability is giving you a buff for blocking. So whenever you're blocking, you'll get more blocking protection, and it will make you invulnerable for a second when you cast a spell. All in all, the jump ability here is pretty decent, but the other two, I wouldn't say they're necessarily worth it. And so that means that this class is just a little bit rubbish. Now the Berserker class is pretty fun. You've got a rage buff, which will take away some of your health, but you'll get more movement speed, you'll do more attack damage, and you get your stamina regening really quickly, and it obviously goes down a bit slower as well. Second ability is the Execute. It will pretty much give you 3 or 4 hits that will do more increased damage and it'll last for that time. You can see up there, it's got the dev little sword, the mini lightsaber. You do need a weapon equipped to get the most out of this. I found that when I was using the punches, the execute special ability just didn't seem to be doing too much. But as soon as I switched to a weapon, obviously I'm using a pretty OP weapon here, you could tell that I was doing a lot more damage with it for 3 or 4 hits. But the best one is last, it's the dash ability. You have a rage dash where you can pretty much take out an enemy in one fell or little run. It's super quick and super fun. Just look how quickly you go through this guy, and that's it, he's brown bread, absolute dead. I think the Berserker is definitely one of my favourites, as the abilities all actually work and they've pretty much got some great uses. The dash one is really good, and then obviously getting that extra damage with a weapon when you've got one equipped for a few times with the execute. As long as you've got plenty of health, so plenty of foods to give you lots of health, then it won't matter if it's taken away a little bit. Berserker, you need bone fragments. Next up is Druid, and again it had an ability that just wasn't working correctly or didn't seem to be doing the same job, but it has got some cool stuff going on with this one. Its second ability, Root Defender, literally means you've got the roots that you take on the Elder God with, they'll be on your side and they'll carry on doing damage to anything that's within range. Now the range is pretty limited, so you're going to have to make sure that you're in and around it, and they can be destroyed by big strong creatures like the Troll here, but they're fairly effective and I like the ability. As long as you can keep an enemy sort of nearby them, and then yeah, it's a really good effective one. It was doing lots of damage to this troll before it eventually got pummeled to death by it. The Druid's also got a passive spell where it pretty much regenerates health for you and any of your friends nearby, so that's a good one obviously to have too. And then the third one, the special one, it just doesn't work correctly. It's meant to throw a bunch of projectile vines towards the enemy, and you can kind of see it spawning in, but it doesn't actually do any damage. So again, hopefully that'll be fixed soon, but that's one that's a bit busted, so I would probably avoid it until you see it's fixed. And for the Druid, you do need a piece of Dandelion to activate it. Next up, the Shaman class that has loads of buffs. So the first buff you get increases your movement speed, it regenerates your stamina, so very much like the Berserker one, the Rage buff too. Also added benefit though that it replenishes your teammates' stamina quicker too for a little while. So I really like this one as a nice little buff. Then it has another buff which is called Shell, and you'll see a little shield pop up in the top right. This is actually meant to give you more protection against elemental powers, so like poison, fire, ice, so you won't take as much damage, and you will do a small amount of spirit damage by the looks of things when you hit, and again for anyone that's nearby. So meant to be kind of a support class is the Shaman. Now the Shaman's third spell does actually work, and it's like a shock damage one, you can see there, it does longer lasting damage, and the troll is still taking damage after you've done it. Considering it's meant to be like the third big one, it just didn't seem to do as much damage as I thought it would. So yeah, the Shaman's okay. If you get you and your friends all planning on using these mods, then it would be a good idea to have this as a support role. And then you need the Grey Dwarf Eye to make sure you switch to that class. And then lastly we've got the Ranger class. Now I like this one as well. That you get is the Shadow Stalk, and that's going to give you reduction in noise and visibility, so you can go hunting a little bit better. Also you'll get more improvement speed while crouched, and you're meant to get a short 5-second burst of speed as well. And then it's got an actual summon wolf ability. Now I like this because I haven't actually messed around with trying to tame a wolf yet. This little wolf has got more health pool, so it'll be harder to actually take down, but it doesn't do as much damage as a regular wolf pet. And then the final ability is a power shot ability, so you'll get much better velocity and attack power whenever you use the bow. And yeah, it's pretty good, it's pretty OP. You don't need as much flight when using it by the looks of things as well. Although I did somehow manage to miss my shot the first time here, but you can see just one hit, yeah, bosh. Now to be fair, boars are normally one hit anyway, but you get the idea, it definitely felt a lot quicker and a lot faster and more powerful using that shot. So let's go ahead and download the Valheim Legends mod. You'll find it on the Nexus mods. You might find it in other sites as well, but this is the easiest one that I found. You do need the RMx installer as well, obviously. I've done plenty of videos showing you guys how to download and install that, so go and check them out there in the comments. Just click on Files, go ahead and press Manual Download, which is what I do. Slow download. Now I've got a folder strictly called Valheim Mods. I always extract it to there. Extract all. I do it in the same folder, but you might want to do it in another folder. And you've got to copy and paste both of these things into the RMx section. One's a folder and the other one is the mod itself. The folder here contains the assets for the UI, pretty much adds that new skills or the list of skills. Let's go ahead and just copy them. Then if you go into where your Steam library is, Steam Apps, Common Valheim, click on BepInEx, Plugins, and then go ahead and just paste it. And you can see I've already got the VO assets and I've got the Valheim Legends there. Once you've loaded it up and once you've pressed start on the game at least once, exit out of the game, quit it completely. And what you should have is, in the config file in the BepInEx section, you'll have the Valheim Legends config. So from what I can tell is, you are meant to choose one of these classes first. There isn't one as a default, so if it's not working, make sure you go and do this. Put any one of the classes, obviously making sure you've got a capital letter. So I've got the Ranger class here. You can then go ahead and change anything that you feel you want to. You can turn off the ability icons so they don't show. You can change the ability hotkeys. So at the moment it's Z, and then I've got one to R, and then I've got one to, I think, C. Now the ability 2 is default value is X, so obviously that's not great because that's the crouch button. Well, it is for me anyway. So go ahead and change that if you want to. You can even add a combo where you've got to hold Shift or Alt or something and then pressing a key. And then you can change how much of energy cost it will use, so pretty much how much stamina it's going to use. The default is pretty punishing. I definitely recommend taking it down a notch. That way you'll be able to use more spells and it doesn't cost as much stamina. And then you can reduce the cooldown as well. Again, this is normally set to 1, but I've done it to 0.5. You can change the damage of the ability, so I've just left that as base stats, but you can increase that more. And then you can increase how much skill points you get for each time you use it. So if you want to level up fairly quickly, I would say put it to 100, or in my instance I put it to 1000, and that got me up pretty decent. Make sure you save, and then that's it. Just go ahead and start Valheim, and you're good to go. Now originally when I was doing this recording, I thought I had to change the name of the classes every single time I wanted to switch, and that did seem just a little bit OP, going in and having to start over. But actually that's what the sacrificial altars are for. You're meant to bring the item to the altars and then change it. The mistake I made was that you have to at least put one of these classes in the config file when you first start, and that's why afterwards it'll work. I had problems whenever I was trying to switch classes and use the altars. My class was already changed, and that's because obviously the config file had already changed it when I did it. So basically don't make the same mistake I did. Just put any class in the config file the very first time you load up the game with the mod installed. Go back into the game once you've saved it, and then anytime you want to change your class you can easily, as long as you've got the items and you go to one of these altar tables to go ahead and change. Hope I've explained that a little bit. If there's any problems with that, then you can go ahead and manually change it in the config file, and it will automatically give you it without having to use an item, and the list of items will be in the comment section as well. But I pretty much have told you guys all throughout the video which ones you need to sacrifice. Is it a good mod? It's an okay mod, with obviously some of the abilities not necessarily working for whatever reason. I still think also that some of the default values just make this mod seem a little bit useless. Bearing in mind, I reckon they want you to power up and level up, and that's where you're meant to level up by using these powers. You'll gain some of the skills that I showed off or spoke about, but it still just felt a little bit underwhelming. You know, if I'm going to be a powerful god, I don't want to have to necessarily learn how to do it or grind my way through it. I think we're at that stage with some of these mods that it's nice just to have a big, great ability straight away. So yeah, if they can refine that as well, it'd be nice also to have some specific class attributes that didn't actually need you to use a stamina based system. So maybe if you are a ranger class, it'll automatically give you a 0.5 speed boost or sneak crouch bonus always. Likewise, the berserker class will always give you a 0.5 extra buff for beating up enemies barehanded. If the mod creator adds some of that stuff, I think this mod could go places in terms of having nice classes, and it might be fun to do a whole playthrough just based on one single class and see if you can do it. Let me know what you think about becoming a Valheim god and character classes in Valheim. Do you think the base game needs it as well? And as always, I'll be back with more mod showcases in the future. Until next time, ratbags, laters.